I love that one. Blessings and burdens. You're somewhere in the middle, right?
Always.
So we're going to talk about betrayal trauma. I think one, so many people have trauma. Two, everyone knows betrayal. So do me a favor, right from the beginning. What is betrayal trauma?
Well, how about this? Instead of a definition, let me give you a quick analogy. So, imagine you are on a bridge that's a mile above ground, and this bridge is a mile long. It's a very thin bridge. And under the bridge are active volcanoes and infernos, fires with billowing smoke and heat. And you're on that bridge and you have to get across that bridge to be safe. And you're holding, let's just say, the two things that mean the most to you. It could be your mother, it could be your child, it could be an animal. You're holding in your two hands the things that are most precious to you, and you start to walk. But as you're walking, the heat from the volcano and the fire underneath you is so immensely hot that it's burning through the soles of your sneakers. So you look down and you know, my Lord, if you fall, it is over. And so you start to walk, but you can't even see what's in front of you because the smoke is so thick. So what you do is you try to put your hand on the person in front of you to help lead the way. And the person in front of you is the person you love and trust the most. You trust them with their life more than you trust yourself. And so you got your hand on their shoulder, and they're walking, and you're holding your two most prized possessions in your hand. And out of nowhere, the bridge collapses, and you start to fall. Now you're falling. You're looking around for things to hang on to, things to grab onto, but there's nothing. And even if you did see something, you're holding two precious things in your arms. So your brain is hijacked. You look down, you're going into the eye of the volcano. And while you're falling, you look up and you see the person you loved and trusted the most has a hammer in their hand. They're the ones that made the bridge fall. Now you're thinking, what is going on? How could they do this to me? And then you fall and you die mentally and emotionally, but not physically. And that's where I come in. That's my definition. I'm sticking to it.
I think that is beautiful because people can relate to it, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I look at so many different types of relationships and you always feel a sense of betrayal. And so, in the analogy that you gave and in the people that you work with, do you sometimes see that the betrayal doesn't always come from someone else, but maybe it comes from an internal, like they've betrayed themselves?
Well, here's the deal. Absolutely. And this is where we get the term betrayal blindness from, because betrayal blindness is a term that was coined in the early 90s by a woman named Jennifer Freed. And what she found was that a part of our nervous system, which is the fight, flight, freeze, all those other F's, um, what they do is their job is to actually calm our body and or keep us safe. So what happens is when we have a perceived threat, betrayal blindness will kick in, and we won't dig into that threat further. So let me give you an example, okay? I don't know if I gave you this last time we were talking, but imagine Little Red Riding Hood. She wants to go see her grandma, and she knows she's got to trudge through the, scary forest, but she wants to see her grandma so bad she's willing to do whatever. She's got blinders on. So she goes up to the house and she knocks on the door. But you know what? Something inside of her tells her something's off. Because usually grandma says, who is it? Nobody said anything. Something inside of her tells her something's off. Now, she might not know exactly what's off, but something's off that's telling her. But because she wants to see her grandmother so bad, she ignores those pink and red flags. So she opens up the door. She walks in. Grandma, grandma, you home? She doesn't get an answer. Now, something inside of her is even louder, but she can't pinpoint it. She just knows something's off. Now she goes to the back room and she knows this isn't her grandmother. She's like, Grandma, why do you have beady eyes, long jaws, sharp teeth? I mean, come on. What? But she doesn't run because betrayal blindness kicks in, but it's to her detriment because the wolf obviously eats her and she dies. Well, here's the deal. 9 times out of 10, you were in a relationship and there's times something feels off. We can't pinpoint it. We might not know exactly, but just something is what. But what happens is betrayal blindness kicks in. It's our natural body's senses kicks in, and this is often on a subconscious level. And what we think of is, Oh man, if I start asking questions about the lip gloss that I just found in the glove compartment or the hair that I found on the seat that's not my color, now I got to tell my friends that the person I was with was unfaithful. That's embarrassing. Now my kids might have to spend every other weekend with each parent, and now my finances are going to be disrupted. And again, a lot of this happens on a subconscious level. So we're like, no, 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 and then we start excusing it away. Oh, my wife is so nice. When I saw her at Starbucks with her boss, she was probably just, giving him some tips on, whatever. Or my husband's so nice, the blonde hair in his car, he probably just gave his coworker a ride home because he's so nice. Okay, but here's the deal, what you just said, and you're correct. When the crap hits the fan and we actually now are faced with the reality, our spouse, our partner, our significant other is absolutely cheating on me, having an affair, betraying me, what have you. Now you're not only dealing with the betrayal of the person you loved and trusted the most, you're trying to do that when you don't even know who you are because you betrayed yourself for so long. So, yes, it's both, and sometimes one or the other.
Which one is more impactful, the betrayal of someone else or the betrayal of ourselves?
Well, that completely depends from person to person. How much self love do you have? How much self worth do you have? How much self reflection do you have? One of the things that I tell people all the time is, and this is my own thing, so you're not going to find this in any study just because I've been working with couples for so long. This is my own thing. When we are hit with a betrayal and it's in front of our eyes and there's no denying it, in my opinion, 40% of what we're going through in that moment is the betrayal at hand. 40% of our complete, shattered, broken, damaged, destroyed self is the destruction at hand. But in my opinion, the other 60% is what that did is it woke up the sleeping giant of your developmental wounds that were unhealed. So I think when we betray ourselves, it has longer effects and deeper roots. Because I'm telling you something, when I try to help couples, especially if they're trying to rebuild and repair and move back on together, yes, we have to spend time on you as a couple and the betrayal and the broken trust. There's no doubt. But if you don't heal your pre existing insecurities and pre existing wounds, then what you're going to do is imprison your partner, your spouse, your significant other for the rest of their life. And no matter what they do to build trust, it's never going to be good enough because they're fighting an invisible battle. And those are your wounds that you need to deal with.
That's what I was thinking as well. I was thinking that it was more so, and this is anecdotal because it's our experience, that it's more so the betrayal of yourself. And you raise a good point when you have unhealed trauma, unhealed experiences, maybe from your childhood, from your teenage years, and it comes up in the relationship, and you have a choice at that point, right? Like either you can face it head on and try to resolve it, or you could run, as you mentioned, right? Fight, flees, fawn, and so on. And then I wonder sometimes when people are struggling to resolve their past and it's starting to creep up in their relationship, what do you think are some of the obstacles then people face when they're looking their trauma in the face? It's impacted them, and now they have to make that decision.
Well, listen, it's a very good question. It's a very complex question. And here's the reason why. There's no such thing as a one size fits all when it comes to healing or when it comes to betrayal or trauma, because depending on so many things, such as what type of environment did you have in your family of origin? What type of supports do you currently have? Do you have a faith walk or a faith journey or a faith belief? What types of resources do you have at your hand? So really it's difficult to answer that question because everybody is completely different. But I will tell you this. A lot of times what happens is when we're younger, actually, I don't even know if I'm going to answer your question, but I want to say this. When we are younger, what happens is we all take on certain characteristics to survive in our home. So, for instance, let's just say your mother's a raging alcoholic, right? Well, you're going to take on the characteristic of, you know what, if I avoid my mother, I'm not going to get beat. I'm not going to be called names. I'm not, whatever. Let's just say your mother only gives you attention if you get all A's on your report card. Well, then listen, if I please my mother, that's I'm going to be most safe in my home. If I please my mother, I'm not going to be on her crap list. I'm, whatever. So let me clean the house and get good grades and use my manners because pleasing me it keeps me safe. Well, what happens is when we have these saboteurs, and the reason I call them saboteurs is because they were survival strategies when we are younger. But if we don't heal them or address them when we get older, they start sabotaging us in relationships because when certain things happen in relationships and we go back to our, well, let me avoid, well, now that could be sabotaging your, or let me people please, that could be sabotaging your relationship. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of the times when we get the rug pulled out from under us, when a betrayal comes to light, one of the main things on our healing journey is learning that, man, I had no idea of my boundaries. I didn't even have boundaries. If I had boundaries, I didn't know how to enforce them. I had very little self-respect. So everybody is dealing with a tremendous, profound amount of pain on their journey. And one last thing I want to say before I'm quiet, because some people will be listening to this will saying, well, listen, I didn't have a lot of trauma in my childhood. And that's could be true because the Latin word for trauma is wound. So let's just say people don't have like, big T trauma, they have wounds. We still had our safety characteristics that we needed when we were young that needed to protect us that now go against us in our adulthood.